everybody.
Hi,
I'm Hope, and this is Catherine.
I'm Catherine.
And
This is Hope.
So we're here today to talk to you about light language, and I'm sure a lot of people have a lot of questions. So Catherine is going to kind of explain a little bit about what it is and why she does it, and hopefully we can get a better understanding about what it is.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, okay, I guess I'll just start with a really simple one sentence explanation about what light language is. So, light language, or the sacred language of light, is the primordial, original language of creation. It's basically sacred geometry in form through sound. So it's kind of interesting because it's a language that was the original language of creation. It's the original language that all of humans spoke before our languages became multiple versus one. So at one point in human history, probably in several points in human history, we actually spoke one language across the entire globe amongst all peoples. And so this is actually that language. But it's very interesting because if you actually Google light language, there's a lot of videos out there with different people speaking their version of light language. And so because light language actually is sound and vibration being brought forward, there's as many dialects of light language as we have in human language. So for example, one person may be speaking a galactic language, something, from their soul origin, where they might have originated from another star system or another planet. Then there's also the angelic light language, which is more of the, if you hear a lot of people who sing light language, it's usually the angelic form of light language. And then there's the elven or fairy light language, which sounds more playful or could even be more serious depending on the person. But then there's also I call it the ancient earth language, and that's really the language that I bring forward for the majority of people, unless they are of a galactic origin or an angelic origin. And so I actually started speaking light language quite by accident. This happened to me when I was around 7 or 8 years old. My parents decided that they were going to move across town, which sounds like not a big deal, but it required me to change schools. So I had to develop an entire new group of friends, which is not that difficult for a 7 or 8 year old.
Yeah.
You make friends really easy at this age. And so the first friend that I made was actually a Pentecostal girl. Well, I didn't know that she was any different than anybody else, other than the fact that she wore dresses and no one else really did. And so she had invited me over to her house on a Friday night because she wasn't allowed to spend the night at anyone else's house. And so I went over and I thought it was kind of strange because they didn't have a TV and we had to make our own things. So she just was very different, and so that was very exciting to me. And we became fast friends. And long story short, I didn't realize her father was actually the minister of her church. And so that's why she never invited me over on Saturday, because Sunday morning church services were never, ever non-negotiable.
Okay.
She always had to be there. And so I finally asked if I could go to church with her. I wanted to know why it was so different. And she said, sure. So I went to church with her, and they were speaking in tongues. And I was kind of a little freaked out at first. And one of the ladies in the congregation just said, look, just start chanting this name of Jesus. Just start saying the name Jesus over and over and over again. Well, I didn't grow up in a church, so I was like, okay, whatever. And so I started chanting it. And before I knew it, I was actually speaking another language. And I really kind of didn't know that I was speaking another language until I stopped speaking the language, and everyone in the church was staring at me.
Oh, wow.
And it kind of freaked me out.
Yeah, I was going to say.
But they explained the process to me about what had happened and, what I was really doing. And so I was like, got really excited.
Yeah.
So I went home and I told my mom, I was like, oh my God, let me tell you about my church experience. I want to start going to church because this was exciting. And of course my mom was like, oh my God, that's devil stuff. So you can never go back again. And not long after that, we moved back to our previous side of town where we were before, and I lost connection to that. But I always retained the memory for it.
Yeah.
And I buried it for a long time. I think a lot of people do whenever they first start to speak light language, because speaking in tongues, if you take the religion part of it out, it's really just channeling that original language.
Okay.
And so I guess when I was in my early 20s, when I got my first pet, I would be playing with her and just get really excited in the moment, and it would just come out as, like, I called it puppy babble. Because it kind of felt like I was speaking like dog language. Baby talk, exactly. And so I always had this ability to do it with my pets. Until I started doing it just to myself, and I started noticing that the more I used it, the more access I had to it. And so it's really interesting because everyone on earth has access to this, and it's in our DNA, because light language actually is the carrier frequency of our DNA. DNA is the carrier of light, which actually, of course, provides information, because light is just information. So that's kind of a long answer. I was going to give you the short answer, but
I think people understand it though a little bit better.
Good.
Kind of have the root of why and how it came to you and stuff like that.
Yeah. So now it was a very long time before I actually felt comfortable enough to bring it forward to anyone outside of my animals and my plants and the trees in my backyard, or those kinds of things, because I really feared that people would be very judgmental about it and be thinking that I'm like one of those crazy woo-woo crazy people.
Yeah.
But ironically, whenever I finally decided to bring it forward, the response was more of an emotional response, a familiarity with it, because it's in our DNA.
Yeah.
And so most people think, you know, hey, what are you saying? What's the translation of this? But there's not an actual literal word for word translation of light language to any of the languages that we speak. Some people, when you're doing it in a group, can hear something that sounds Native American, while another person hears something that sounds Arabic, and another person might hear something that sounds Eastern European or even Asian. So it just really depends on each individual's frequency as to the sounds that they hear and what resonates to them. So it's not meant to be understood by our logical, analytical minds.
Right.
It actually bypasses that and speaks directly to our soul through our heart space. So it's a heart language. It's and that's another reason it also sounds different depending on the speaker, because depending on that person's connection level to themselves, to the universe, to everything around them, will depend on what they're allowed to be able to access.
And I felt that way too when I experienced it. So tell me why you feel now is the time to start bringing this forward.
Yeah, so there's a big answer to that, but let's see, how to keep it really simple would be, of course, there's a mass awakening that's been happening on this planet for the past 30, 40 years. But really, since 2012, that energy has really amplified since we crossed that threshold, that barrier. People are more and more right now finding that they actually have access to this sacred language, that they can pull it out, that they have that connection. They're remembering their sacred language of the soul. And I just think that it is more of a allowance, of allowing it to come through and allowing the vibrational aspects of it to do whatever it needs to do to awaken that in each person. So the more you actually hear light language, the more it's going to come out in you.
Right.
So it's not that I have a special gift that very few people possess. I just have a gift that very few people are accessing.
Okay.
So we all have this capability. The same way that we all have the capability of inner sight or inner sound or inner, all these clair gifts, right?
Yeah.
So this is just another one of those gifts.
So it's a very exciting time.
Yes,
You guys
so
know
exciting.
this, and if you don't know this, you will know this.
Yes.
And she was talking to me about this partnership that it sounds really amazing, and I would like her to kind of go into that a little bit so she can explain what's going on, and it has to do with the power of crystals.
Yes. So this is really interesting. I've actually had a lot of people coming to me in my hypnosis sessions that are asking about an event. Everybody wants to know, what's this event? When's this event going to happen? Like, everyone's talking about something called the event, the same way that they were talking about 2012.
Okay.
They're like, hey, there's some kind of event where everything's going to shift and everything's going to change. And it's very interesting because the timeline for that is different depending on the person.
Okay.
We as physical human beings have this expectation of time, that something's going to happen on a certain day at a certain time. And while in the grand cycle of time, that's true, when you're looking at an event like 2012, for example, where there's like this whole galactic alignment thing that's happening. But in terms of energetic shifting, these actually kind of come in waves. And so the event can actually be broken down into events. And it might hit you, and one person will experience it one way and another person will experience it another way. But this latest event has been a wave of energy that is now allowing people like you and I, who are maybe have different experiences with a spiritual modality or a healing modality or a bringing back an inner awareness modality, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Instead of actually tackling that alone, we're now starting to partner up because these are starting to marry with each other. And so light language is quite a beautiful experience to marry with something, say, sound healing with crystal bowls.
Yeah.
So my recent partnership has been really quite by surprise, where I've been speaking with Albert Milligan of QuantumStones.com, who makes these amazing crystal pendants. And these crystal pendants, he actually has a patented technology called light shield technology, where he's been able to take certain sounds or frequencies and program the crystals that you order to wear with certain sounds and frequencies. So for example, the one I'm wearing right now is actually programmed with the sounds of the sun and the earth, which were taken from the NASA Voyager recordings when they were recorded and actually infused into my crystal. So what we're doing is we're actually taking all the light language recordings that I'm doing for clients privately and allowing them to take that recording and imbue it into a crystal, so that not only do they have something to listen to, but they also have a physical aspect of that DNA changing vibrational frequency.
That's so cool.
It's so amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited about it because it's just another example of how you can marry modalities with each other and it be just so complementary that it just boosts your accessibility to something.
Yeah. When I heard about this, I was like, this is just so cool. This is like taking all this stuff that is just so healing and so helpful, and allowing you to, kind of have a little piece of it. So we'll have that information below if you want to access these necklaces. And so my next question is this. So if, say I want to know more about light language, and if I would contact you, are you going to do you channel a specific session for me, or how does that work?
Yes, so on my website I actually have it listed to where you can just order your own personal recording. So all I need from you is your name.
Okay, that was going to be my next question.
I don't need your date of birth, where you were born. I'm not astrologically channeling anything for anyone. I just need your name. And whenever you place your order for your personalized recording, your higher self gets to work on what message it wants to bring forward for you. And it knows that I'm going to be connecting directly to your higher self to be able to channel that message specifically to the person. It's kind of interesting because I have like a sweet little process where I actually go in and I connect and ground myself to my guides and my higher self. And then I call forward the higher self of the person that I'm doing the transmission for. And I just allow that person's higher self to relay a message through my vocal cords to that person in the language of light. So once that recording is done, sometimes the recordings can be 5 minutes long and sometimes they can be 30 minutes long. It just really depends on the person. I never know how much of a message a person's going to get. And I never know what the actual intent of the message is per person. It's not my message.
Right.
Even though the light language itself affects me physically in terms of awakening and healing things within myself, it's not my message to analyze or understand. It's just me being a vehicle for that message to come through.
Yeah.
And this is really all that any channel is. They're just bringing heaven to earth through the physical.
Yeah.
So that's all that the process requires. Whenever you submit your order, I think if you've got a PayPal account, it tells me your name, so you don't even have to send me anything.
Oh, okay.
So it's really easy.
Yeah.
I get the order and it has your information. It usually takes about 48 to 72 hours, just depends on what my schedule is and how many people are in the queue in front of you to get your message. Sometimes I'm actually guided to give you the raw message by itself, and sometimes I'm actually guided to add certain sounds or frequencies to that
that's
message.
Interesting.
So I never actually choose that. It's always told to me after the message has taken place by that person's higher self.
So they'll get a recorded sound
Yes.
that they can listen to, and then you're also going to get
Yes.
the crystal with
The
it
crystal
infused.
pendant with that infused into that.
Yeah.
And you can choose at which point that you're ordering, whether or when you receive it, whether or not you want just the raw message, or if you get a message with a recording background sounds.
Okay.
So, and the other really nice thing is that we've actually decided, and this is just based on the guidance that I've received from my own higher self and the spirit guides, to allow that person's higher self to indicate which crystal will work best for their message.
Okay.
So while we might offer one for each chakra, I will actually be told which one that they should purchase.
Oh, okay.
So whenever you get your message transmission sent to you, it will actually come back to you with a suggested stone.
Okay.
So that way we actually have a pure experience with it.
Yeah. Wow. And they are very beautiful.
They are so beautiful, and I really love this one. This one's just a clear quartz crystal, and then the design will be a little bit different than the one I have now, but we're still working on that. We don't actually have an order page up yet, so if you are interested in ordering one, I am doing pre-orders right now, so you can actually get one of the stones and your reading, and then once the design, the only thing that's going to change, of course, is just the design around the stone. So the stone itself will be the same, but you'll be able to, get on our list so that once we have the veil design complete, we'll send you the new one. So you'll have two.
Yeah.
So it's really nice. And the price for that is $99, and that's for your light language recordings and your crystal, and of course you get your free gift box and a free chain.
Yeah.
So some jewelry companies will only send you just the pendant, and then you have to work it out for yourself. So you'll at least get, something to wear with it.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's any more questions.
Well, one of the questions that you haven't asked yet is what light language actually does. What are the benefits?
Okay, good. That's good.
Yes. So the benefits of light language. Honestly, since I began bringing it forward and speaking it out loud, not just having it rolling around in my head. So what happens is whenever you take your thoughts and bring them out into a verbal expression of whatever that is, it's like a completion of a circle. So for me personally, I have experienced profound shifts in how I actually experience the outside world in terms of I don't feel really anxious.
Okay.
So on my way here today, I was stuck in traffic and I didn't have that angst about, hurry up, move, you know.
Yeah.
It's brought like a calming experience for me. So when I got here, I was still happy.
Yeah.
You know, I wasn't like frustrated or any of that stuff. So there's that. And that's just kind of one of those subtle things that you just really notice. And just like any kind of energy work, this kind of experience, it works on the subtle body. So it's going to affect you in whatever way is most appropriate for your soul and your path at the current time. So you might hear your message the first time and it affects you one way, and then you might listen to it 3 months from now and it affects you completely differently. And that's why it's quantum in nature, right? It's speaking to the DNA. And here's an interesting scientific fact that I've just recently learned, thanks to Greg Braden, who's forward. Our DNA actually repairs and renews itself every 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've listened to a lot of different...
So it's kind of an amazing experience. You can kind of see how it would affect you differently.
Yeah.
Depending on when you're listening. You might literally be a different person the next time you hear it. But usually I request or suggest rather that people get the most benefit when they listen to it every day for at least 21 days straight.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Like, do I have to but you said you're going to include some type of something that maybe you can like explain how to use it.
Yes, so they'll actually get, you know, like a thank you letter, but it'll also have a best way to use your crystal and your sound meditation.
Okay.
But even if people didn't want necessarily the crystal and they just wanted the reading, I still recommend that you just listen to the recording every day for 21 days. And let's face it, if it's a 5, 10 minute, 15 minute message, that's not a whole lot of time out of your day to listen to it, and just allow it to do what it needs to do. Because just like we can break a habit in 21 days, we can also reprogram our bodies in 21 days.
Yes.
Because we're literally rewriting our DNA.
Yes, and
with these sounds.
So much of technology and all these different healing modalities is bringing forth this repair guidance. I guess I would say it's like a guidance to repair our DNA. Like we've done the damage. Or the people that have come before us have done the damage, and now it's like this is a time for people to actually start fixing all the damage.
Absolutely.
You know.
Well, there's only so much you can do on the mental level and on the physical level even.
Yeah.
So once you start marrying these things together, then you start to notice really profound results.
Yeah.
So if you take a light language recording and you're wearing the crystal and perhaps you're doing yoga or perhaps you're doing massage or Reiki or some other kind of sound healing or energy work, you're really kind of coming at it from every perspective.
Yeah.
So from a physical perspective, from a metaphysical, from a spiritual, from a mental, from an emotional.
Yeah.
So you're really affecting the multiple layers of your energy body, which is amazing. Because then you start to notice, oh, I feel different. And it kind of is interesting because for me personally, whenever I'm about to do a session, it usually affects me that I start feeling kind of spacey in my body.
Oh.
It's like my body is already knowing that it's about to do something really amazing. And so it starts to prepare even before I sit down to have the experience. So that's what really happens as you listen to the recording. So your body is like, oh, I know what we're about to do. Let's prepare. We're going to fix something. We're going to repair something. We're going to heal something. So it can work on you in terms of clearing your connection to your own inner guidance. It can help you to have clearer access to your inner knowing. It can literally repair your DNA. It can just help you to relax and just not be so uptight or just chilled, you know, without having to have mind-altering chemicals to do so.
Right.
You know, while I do enjoy a glass of wine, I'm also way more excited when I can enjoy that natural high of connecting.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That's something I've
such a different experience.
been experiencing, yeah. And, you know, if they have this profound change, and I feel like that's kind of like where people's at right now, where they're wanting to have this, or they're feeling the need for this.
Yes.
You know, or they're drawn to these type of modalities because they're trying to figure something out or work through something.
Right.
Or figure out what their purpose is. You
Well,
know?
the beauty about light language is that because it bypasses our mental faculties and goes straight to our feeling, our emotion, it's really important that when anyone listens to light language, whether it's a recording you get from me or if you're just listening to a YouTube recording of another practitioner who brings it forward, close your eyes, get into a relaxed state before you listen, and really pay attention to how it feels in your body, where you feel it in your body. What does it bring up for you? Is it discomfort or is it pleasant? If it's discomfort, don't be afraid to examine that and figure out why. So for example, I actually had a friend of mine who just sent me a video of someone doing a light language session. She was like, hey, I was just wondering what you think about this other lady who does light language, because it's very different than what I bring forward.
Right.
And I just kind of skipped past the lady talking about it and went straight to the recording, and her initial connection was like this crazy noise that I was like, no, I don't want to listen to this. I can't listen to this. It's too weird for my, like, I was listening to it with my eyes open.
Oh.
And I was experiencing this state of judgment about what I was hearing.
Okay.
So I said, okay, wait a minute. Let me take my own advice here. So I started it over and I listened to her entire speech leading into it because that was important. That was an important part of her process. And I closed my eyes and I just listened. And when I listened that way, I felt it in my body differently. I wasn't judging it. I wasn't analyzing it. And I just experienced it. And I experienced why it felt discordant for me to hear it with my ears was because it was literally like touching this place in one of my chakras that was bringing something forward for me, waking it up.
Yeah.
And it was like a shock to the system. It was like, wait, what's happening?
Well, I'm glad you made that point, because I feel like just like when you were talking about when you were a little girl in the Pentecostal church and you had this great experience.
Yes.
And then you went home and your mom like shut it down.
Yes.
So I feel like if you're open-minded to this, kind of take her advice and close your eyes and really listen, you may have a different experience. Don't use the judgment factor, because obviously we all do it with our eyes.
Absolutely.
You know, so if it sounds weird at first, maybe it's just because of the perspective that you're taking with it. So.
Absolutely.
Good point.
Yeah.
That's not something I would have thought to bring back.
I know. Well, it's because I've had clients ask me, you know, well, I'm not really feeling this when what they really mean is I'm hearing it with my conscious ears and I'm not connecting to it.
Right.
So the connection really comes when we shut out the external and really allow it to do what it's supposed to do for our energy and for our bodies.
Yeah. Great talk.
Yeah.
I hope you guys got
Really
a little bit of information. We're super excited about this awakening and these connections that all these healers and people who do these modalities are connecting and making this happen. And if you're interested and you're excited about something, or you feel like this really connects with you, we'll have all the information available. And she also has, I'll put the links in for the video of her doing a sample. Actually,
if you want, I can go ahead and give everyone an experience now.
Okay, great.
I'm actually feeling that I should be giving everyone an experience. So I'm just going to ask you to close your eyes. I'm going to close my eyes, and we're just signaling to the body that I'm about to go within and connect. So just take a couple of deep breaths just to anchor myself internally into my body, connecting to my guidance.